Many years ago, there was a tank engine who was bringing a train down from the mines. It was like Thomas and Timothy and a couple other E2s, but it was mainly gray with the number 10 painted on his sides. He was bringing his load down from the mine, where he had to cross an old bridge. Now this bridge the engine was going to cross did not have any sides on it, and it wasn't that stable because there was a track piece that was able to make sure engines could come off the rails if they didn't go very slowly over it. And this steam engine was going very fast and didn't see a snag in the track that just moved a few minutes before it came. The first car in the engine's train hit a snag in the bridge, and then it started to pull the train to the edge of the cliff. The engine braked as hard as he could, but the weight of the loaded cars was too much for him. The boxcar fell over the cliff first. Then the wood from the flatbed fell out. The second boxcar fell over too. And lastly, the flatbed pulled the engine off the bridge. The engine and his crew and the train fell into the mucky marsh below and sank towards the bottom of the surface. "Ow!" shouted the guard and the engine's crew, but no one heard their cries of help. And no one knew where they were a few days later. Many months later, the line closed down, but then a year after the incident had passed, many workmen will tell you that when the moon is full, they have seen the tank engine trying to get home, but he never reaches the other side. Some say the tank engine always appears as his former self, while others believe that he appears as a white steam engine. Years passed, and soon the new engines had come to the railway to work and have it restored. Coal and rocks were laying everywhere all over the tracks where they had been abandoned, along the same section where the old iron bridge still stood. Sir Topham had sent a couple engines to work on this line, as well as some trucks and a few cranes. Today, James, the NWR engine, was having his train filled, ready for another engine to take. This is just rubbish. I want to go for a run and take one of these trains somewhere, not just shunt and cranes, wait for other trucks to be loaded, and not take the train myself. Well, James, the way you behave, he would have said that would have been not better off not sending you at all, said Eric, who was one of the engines helping on with the work. But it's so boring just waiting for these cranes to put cargo into these trucks here, he said. I really want to go for a run, because I can shunt more trucks here or there than any of you guys. And besides, this is supposed to be your job, not mine. James, it's not only my job, it's called teamwork. You've been doing it for years before I even came to this railway. See? We're all taking it in turns to take trains, but I haven't had my chance yet. But, like I said, I want to go for a run. You will one day. You will. Once Eric was down the line and went past the junction where the old iron bridge stood, he started to feel very hot. "Ugh, driver, how much water do I have?" he asked. "Not that much, but you can get some from that water tower up on the hill over there." "Oh, that's good." Eric struggled a bit to get up the hill, but once he did, he immediately wanted to refill his tank. "Oh, that's better." But what he didn't know was something was about to happen. As a result, he felt a terrible shaking and tugging on his coupling.
Between himself and the first truck. All of a sudden, it happened.
What's happening now, Grumps? The wretched trucks are broken free.
Then comes the man into the bushes by the side of the line. The truck spun out of control and hurtled down the line. Then watched them clatter into one another on the old line bridge, plunging to the depths of the marsh below.
James will never let me hear the end of this. Oh, never mind, James. Wait till Sir Topham Hatt hears about it. Later that night, Sir Topham Hatt spoke to Eric. Eric, first off, I want to say that I am so disappointed that you let your trucks get away. But the good thing that came out of it is that they didn't die. They were pulled out of the river an hour after you left, which is why they were extremely lucky. They've been sent to the works now. I'm sorry, sir. I'm just glad you're safe and sound, and you didn't fall off the bridge, unlike the last engine that did. What engine? He was a gray tank engine, the same class as 9 here. Only he had the number 10 in brown, and he fell off the bridge. Oh, I see, said Eric. Since I'll need you to recover from almost, getting scared of, No, I wasn't scared, sir. But anyways, Eric, I'll need you to stay in the yard for a while. Next time you'll think more clearly. Yes, sir. James will take over with your work for now until you're ready to come back. Thank you, sir. At least I get to go for a run now, and finally... I see you're still the complainful one, James. Oh, yeah? Yeah. She's right about that, James. As long as there's no haunting story about that bridge, nothing gonna go wrong. Well, there kinda is. What? Yes. What Sir Topham had just told us that left behind a haunting story. There was the engine appears as a ghost. Its sound gets fainter and fainter as it comes to the bridge. You usually hear its whistle as it approaches. If it's in front of you, the engine will vanish, and then you'll hear a big splash in the river below. Oh? That story's a load of rubbish. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to sleep. I'll do the same. But the crews had a plan. Once James was asleep, the two crews spoke to the two engines. We'll play a trick on James. Oh, what's the trick? Oh, you'll see. The next day, they spoke to James's driver and fireman, who agreed. We'll do it tonight. James had to take empty cars away to the mines, where he'd been wanting to see for quite a while. Empties and coal trucks is where he had to take them, and then bring other cars back. His driver had decided as part of the plan to cross the old iron bridge. In the valley, they could hear Eric's whistle. "What are you quivering for?" he said. It's only Eric. "I'm not quivering," said James, but all the same, he kept thinking about 9's story. And when dusk fell, he was keen to leave. "If we don't go now, 9 will take my favorite place in the sheds. We can't go back until we've collected all the trucks first," his driver replied. He could see their plan was working because James was getting nervous. As he shunted his train together, when night fell, they set off. As James made his way down the lawn, he couldn't help feeling nervous when he came to the bridge. he didn't know that two familiar tank engines and a siding were waiting. Once James passed by and whistled, the two engines knew that was the signal, and so did their crews. Yep, that's the signal. Let's go. Jesse and Eric moved out of the siding, eager to scare James. Once they got there, James and his driver stopped the train halfway across a bridge.
As a shrill whistle echoed around them. What was that? Through the mist,
James could see flickering lights drawing closer and closer to him. His driver knew they were only little insects that shone brightly at night, but to James it looked like an engine. James's driver next threw a rock secretly from the cab into the ravine below. James stood in a miseralized horror of the lights.
the whistle echoed around them again. The puffing got louder and louder. Like hissing of steam and a clutter of trucks on the rails. But as quickly as it appeared, the lamp faded, a silhouetted engine back from mist. What was that? Ah! It's the doors! Take it back! Take it back! Never mind nothing that's going to shame while sneaking out of the crossing destruction of dealing! Take it back!
James reversed his train back to the siding, howling loudly with his eyes closed. James. Don't be daft, James. It's just Eric again and 9. James opened his eyes gently. 9 and Eric were waiting in the siding, and they seemed very confused and worried. What are you all still doing here? I thought you were gonna follow us across.
What do you mean, follow us?
We were trying to play a trick on you, James.
And they explained their plan to him.
The problem is when we couldn't get out to the siding. The points are stuck fast and against us.
Yeah, it must have happened when we passed you on the way down.
So, it was all a trick. I knew it was nonsense.
Yes, but why have you come back then? I heard a lot of whistling from the bridge. We thought that was you. We only whistled the once for the first signal. We dropped the brake and had the big splash you made. It was really effective, wasn't it, boy?
Aye, if you believe that sort of thing.
Hell, we didn't drop anything over the bridge. Yeah? How could we? It's a 10-minute walk there and back to here. Besides, what could we carry enough and make a bigger splash in the creek?
They all pause, reflect.
I thought I saw engine lights.
I saw it too, said James's driver. I thought it was you, Eric. It was Eric. Tell him. Please tell him.
Can't blame me. You don't think.
They didn't want to think any further on it. The two crews fixed the points. The cavalcade puffed forward. Cautiously trotting over the old iron bridge.
Even though James kept saying that all the way back home to Titmuff Sheds, it didn't stop him from asking Mr. Topham had to give him a second chance in Eric's place and shunting. There's no such thing as ghosts. But I don't think the three seemed very convinced. Don't you? But if it wasn't Eric, then who did James see pushing his truck onto the old iron bridge? I can only assume we'll never truly know.